Welcome, my fellow recovering traditionalists, to episode 220, The Math Fluency Trap. Why flexibility isn't enough. Yeah, you heard that right. If you're an educator, you've probably found yourself caught in the middle of the fluency debate. On one side, you've got people saying, kids need to memorize their facts, we need more drill and practice. And on the other side, you've got people saying time tests and drills create anxiety. We should never drill kids on their facts. And you're stuck in the middle thinking there has to be a better way. Well, there is. Today, I want to talk about that fluency trap where speed is important, but it isn't enough. Flexibility is important, but it isn't enough either. So stick around to learn what math fluency actually entails and how we can help our teachers get out of this all or nothing thinking. Welcome to Build Math Minds, where fidelity to your students is greater than fidelity to your textbook. I'm your host, Christina Tonnevold, the recovering traditionalist and BuildMathMinds.com founder, where my mission is to change the way we teach elementary math to our kiddos. So, are you ready to start building math minds and not just creating calculators? Let's get started. So, math fluency has truly three components: accuracy, efficiency, and flexibility. And that comes from Susan Jo Russell. Accuracy is, of course, getting the right answer. Yes, that does still matter. We're not throwing that away. Kids in mathematics need to get correct answers. Efficiency is the speed. They do need to be able to get the right answer in a reasonable amount of time. That's not necessarily 1 second, but it's not 5 minutes either. So here's the piece almost always missing: flexibility. Flexibility means having multiple strategies to solve a problem if you don't instantly know it. It means understanding relationships between numbers. It means if you don't immediately know 8 plus 7, you can think, oh, 8 plus 8 is 16, so 8 plus 7 just means it's 1 less, so it's 15. Flexibility does lead into math fluency, but it's not the only thing your students need. Now, I am a huge proponent of building number flexibility in students. I even have classes called the flexibility formula. Yet we have swung the pendulum to only focusing on flexibility, and that's not good for students either. Years, the way that we taught math fluency was through worksheets and drills and time tests. And yes, that had some major downsides to it. So that's why the pendulum swung away from that. And I've seen and I've heard from others that building students' flexibility isn't quite working. And that's because the pendulum shouldn't have swung all the way over. It needs to stop in the middle. When kids have flexibility with numbers, when they can see relationships and can use strategies, they can figure out problems without shutting down. However, for facts to actually become automatic, students do need that repetition and practice. Fluency isn't just flexibility, and it isn't just efficiency. Students need all three. They need accuracy, efficiency, and flexibility. And I get it. Teachers are hearing, don't do time tests, they create anxiety. But in the day-to-day reality of working with students, you see students struggling to solve problems because they're still counting on their fingers for basic facts. And you think, well, if I'm not supposed to drill facts, how are they ever going to learn them? So we end up either going back to the drill and practice because at least that's something, or we avoid practice altogether and we just hope that fluency will magically happen. And neither one actually works. Instead, there's a third option: purposeful practice that builds flexibility and accuracy and efficiency. So let's take a look at 3 ways that I like to help teachers along their way to doing that, and 3 people I'm excited for you to learn from at the upcoming Virtual Math Summit. So the first thing I want to recommend that you do is make sure that you all are on the same page about what fluency actually means at your school. Because if teachers think fluency equals speed, they're going to keep drilling the facts and timing kids. So we need to introduce those three components: accuracy, efficiency, and flexibility, and then give them examples to really make that concrete. Think about a student who knows 8 plus 7 equals 15 because they've memorized it. That's accuracy and efficiency. It's great, right? We want those things. But what happens when they see 18 plus 27? If all they have is memorization, they're stuck with only stacking the numbers and doing the algorithm. But if they have flexibility, if they understand that 18 plus 27 is like how they think about 8 plus 7, and they see that they could do 18 plus 2 to just make it 20, and now we have this problem of 20 plus 25, they can quickly create easier problems from the ones they don't know and use things they do know. And often that is faster than the algorithm. That's the power of flexibility. Once teachers understand that flexibility is the missing piece, then they'll start asking different types of questions. Instead of, how do I get my students to memorize or do the algorithm faster? They start asking, how do I help my students see relationships between numbers? And that's when the real work can begin. If you do want help with this part of building fluency, check out the flexibility formula courses we have that are for math coaches and elementary teachers to build your understanding of fluency, what it entails, and how to help students build their flexibility on their way to math fluency. You can find out more about the courses at buildmathminds.com/enroll. The second thing I'd focus on is showing teachers that there is a middle ground between the old drill and practice and just letting kids play around with quantities. It's purposeful practice that builds flexibility and efficiency, not just memorization. And there are so many ways we can do that, but here are just a few of my favorites. Number one, I bet you can guess it, number strings. This is when you use a string of problems that are connected. So picture 8 plus 8, then 8 plus 7, 6 plus 6, and then 6 plus 5. Then maybe 9 plus 9, and then 9 plus 8. You're doing a series of problems, but they are related in some way as they're practicing. So they get that practice to reinforce, but they're also building flexibility. Strategy-based practice is another one of my favorites. So instead of giving students a worksheet of like 50 problems to solve as fast as they can, give them 10. But 10 that are related in some way, or even give them the worksheet of 50 problems, but they have to go through and find 10 problems that they would solve using the same strategy. And then they have to solve them, showing the strategy that they used, not just the answer. This forces students to think flexibly instead of just racing to get answers. And then the last one I'm going to give you is another one of my favorites. If you've been around a while, you know it's games. Games are just such a powerful way to practice facts, and lots of them, in a low pressure and engaging way. But the key is still giving students choice in how they solve those problems while they're playing. The goal isn't for everyone to use the same strategy. The goal is for everyone to have a strategy that works for them. Now I know what you're thinking. I bet you can picture some people that are going to push back when you try to introduce this at your school or with the other teachers you work with. They'll say things like, well, kids need more than 10 problems for practice. And yeah, they do. They'll get some in other activities, but in the beginning, we're building flexibility. Too many problems on a page just seems overwhelming, and your students are just still trying to develop their strategies. Once they have that flexibility, then we can increase the volume of practice. But if we move too quickly to tons of problems, we end up just reinforcing that speed is the important piece. And then they're doing inefficient strategies just to get it done. That's what they're thinking in their brain. All right, the third thing that I would focus on is helping teachers understand that fluency doesn't happen overnight. It is a progression, and different students are going to be at different places in that progression. just like everything else that we have in mathematics. Every kid doesn't get there at the same time. So if you've been around a while, you should be familiar with this cognitively guided instruction progression. If you haven't and you're not familiar with it, I'll link to other trainings where I go deeper into it. But I just want to remind you, kids start out down at the bottom. They are directly modeling. That's the stage they start at. As long as they're counting, they got to count first. Then they move into that counting phase, then derive facts and facts. But here's the key. You can't skip stages. If a student is in that beginning stage where they're directly modeling and counting every single piece of the problem, you can't just tell them to memorize their facts and expect that they will jump to stage 4. Well, I guess you could do that, but this is where we see kids who have some facts memorized, but then they fall back to needing manipulatives or drawing out every part of the problem, or they're using their fingers to figure out a lot of the problems. They need to move through stage 2 and stage 3, the counting and derive facts, if we want to develop true fluency. At stage 3, where they are using those strategies, that is where that flexibility comes into play. That's a stage that we absolutely should not be skipping. So when a teacher is frustrated because their students are still counting on their fingers, help them see that counting on fingers is a stage kids go through, right? But help them see where we're trying to get them through. Our job is to help them move into stage 3 and stage 4, where they're using strategies. They have some that they just know, but they're seeing relationships to figure out ones they don't. And then start practicing more to make those strategies more automatic. Yet again, this is the stuff I help you with inside the Flexibility Formula courses. But this video really wasn't supposed to be about my courses. It's about seeing what other experts have to say on the topic of fluency as well, not just me. We've got some great people joining us for the 2026 Virtual Math Summit at the end of February. And they are the ones I really want you to learn from. But again, I had to start with the beginning. What is fluency and why are we in this not quite sure where to go, because we have both sides telling us that these are important, and they are, but we got to find some middle ground here. So I'm really excited to have you learn from Pam Harris. She's one of my favorites. I know you know her, love her. She's doing a keynote called 5 Most Important Teacher Moves. Pam is one of the biggest names in math education, and she's all about helping students become flexible thinkers. Her 5 teacher moves are practical, research-based, and will give you a clear roadmap for building real fluency, not just speed. I'm really excited about this one. Another one I'm excited about is Dan Finkel. He is the game man, but he's actually doing a session for math coaches this year called Purposeful Fluency, using choice and structure to make practice meaningful. This is exactly what we've been talking about today, how to give students practice that builds flexibility, not just memorization. Dan's going to show you how to make practice engaging and effective if you're struggling with the how do I practice facts without just drill and practice. This session is the answer to that. And third is Becky Lord. She is doing a session called How the Neuroscience of Math and Dyscalculia Can Transform Number Sense and Math Fact Fluency for All. This is the why behind everything we've talked about. Becky's going to dive into how brains actually learn math facts. And when you understand that neuroscience, you can explain to others why building flexibility matters. And that's powerful. But remember, it's not just the flexibility. We got to get all 3 pieces. All 3 of those sessions will give you the tools, the language, and the confidence to help other educators stop that pendulum swing and get out of the fluency trap. And they're completely free. Go to virtualmathsummit.com to get registered. The summit will be live February 28th and March 1st, and there are over 34 sessions for elementary math coaches and teachers. Remember, fluency isn't about speed. It's about accuracy, efficiency, and flexibility. Flexibility is often the missing piece. That's why I'm such a big proponent of it, but it's not the only piece we need to develop. When we help teachers understand all three parts of fluency, we introduce purposeful practice structures and show them the progression. We help them get out of that fluency trap, and we help their students build real, lasting fluency. All right, my fellow recovering traditionalist, I hope that this helped build your math mind so you can build the math minds of students. This episode is brought to you by the Build Math Minds PD site. If you're an elementary math coach or instructional coach and you love this episode, well, you need to come check us out. Whether you're supporting teachers with number sense, helping them move beyond worksheets, or trying to shift mindsets about what math teaching should look like, we've got the PD you need right at your fingertips. Learn more at buildmathminds.com/BMM.